Hello, everyone, and welcome to Teach Me Teacher, a podcast for educators where we, the teachers, become students ourselves. Here, we learn through honest discussions with real-world teachers and administrators in and around the classrooms they're experiencing today. I'm your host, Jacob Chastain, and today, ladies and gentlemen, I have a fantastic surprise for Teacher Appreciation Week. We have none other than Secretary Miguel Cardona here to talk with us and everyone that tunes in every single week to Teach Me Teacher. And full disclosure, this conversation was recorded a few days ago. I didn't do the intro, which is I love to do the intros with my guest there, gets that energy going, but his time is limited, as those of you might understand. And so we wanted to jump right into it because I wanted to hit some big topics. I wanted to talk about the good news of education and what he's pushing for, and maybe highlight some of the new funding that is coming down and attempting to come down to support all of us who are interested in making public education as great as it can be. But I also wanted to hit on some bigger topics, such as how the conversations that are happening in political spheres are starting to affect teachers' jobs and administrators' jobs, and how so much of what's happening in this heated debate, it really is affecting public school, and it's affecting teacher health and teacher mental health, and even trickling down to students, depending on what issue we're talking about. So we cover that and the good news of education, all of that here and more on Teach Me Teacher. Thank you for listening. Enjoy the interview. All righty, Secretary Miguel Cardona, how are you doing today? It is such a pleasure to have you on Teach Me Teacher. And I hear you just had a celebration where you are. Is that correct?
Doing great. Glad to be with you, Jacob. Feeling really, really good right now. Today's one of those days where I feel like I have the best job in the world. I'm in the White House. We left the little celebration, little party room where we had the 50 Teachers of the Year and the National Teacher of the Year, Kurt Russell, with the President, the First Lady, celebrating excellence in teaching. You know, teachers, they work so hard. It's nice to lift up teachers. It's nice to celebrate the profession. And today we got to do that at the White House.
That is wonderful. And it's something that I think is extremely important. I'm actually really fortunate to be in a district where I feel like our Teacher of the Year celebrations are so good. I've been fortunate to be at one and be honored in one. They do this big banquet, and they always have these surprise videos. That's awesome. It's always nice, but that's good to hear that that's happening. Congratulations to all those teachers. But before we get started, I wanted to kind of point out that you've been talking to a lot of people. I know, you've been traveling and talking to teachers, and because you're a teacher yourself, I think you understand the importance of actually talking to educators and listening to our needs in the classroom. And I just wanted to know, based on your travels recently with everything that's been going on, what are some of the things that you've been hearing from across the United States that have come up that you are starting to focus on or have been focusing on based on your feedback?
Yeah, you're absolutely right though, Jacob. Like to do this job without listening to what the teachers are experiencing would be foolish. We're listening, and what we're hearing from teachers is that when we reopen and we get our schools back, we need more mental health supports. We need more time in the day to make sure we're caring for our kids. They're not well right now. We've had mental health issues in our schools before that were really marginally addressed. But what they're saying is we really need to pay attention to this. They also want to feel heard. I think, again, it shouldn't take a pandemic for us to respect and listen to our teachers. But at the end of the day, who better than them to tell us what the kids need and what the schools need to do? I'm really proud of something we just started recently, because we heard from teachers and they said, we need more professional development. I mean, we talk a lot about trauma-informed learning or trauma-informed schools. Kids are coming back from trauma. Teachers are coming back from trauma, but where's the money for that? So we're launching I think it's $65 million investment at the Department of Education now. We're taking applications now. We want to get that money out right away to help teacher professional development. They've been asking for it. We need to put new money in there to make sure they have the tools that they need to be successful in the classroom with today's needs. So we're hearing mental health needs. We're hearing that teachers need to be heard a little bit more, and we're hearing the need for professional development.
Yeah. And I think this is, I mean, I can second all of that and quadruple it. It's something that has been coming up more and more. And I feel like this is something that is really important for us to talk about, especially here, I think, because this need for the mental health services and the social emotional learning piece of education. This is something that has been kind of caught in the crossfire of these political conversations that have been happening, to where some of these terms that teachers use all the time, such as equality and equity and social emotional learning, these are starting to be used. And I feel like political battles, when teachers are just like, we see the real people in our classrooms, we see what they're going through, we see what they need, and yet these things are being twisted in this conversation. And I wanted to ask you, in your role in what you're doing, what is your take on some of the educational conversations that are happening, and how do we even begin to move forward? Because I feel like we're so opposed that teachers are caught in the middle, and we're just wanting to do our jobs and take care of our students.
The educational conversations are fine. The political interference is not. There are some who are trying to use education as a way to divide or create culture wars. We're smarter than that. We're not going to let that happen. Teachers know what to do for our students. School leaders know what to do to care for students. It does matter that we engage our families and our parents, but let's not take the bait. Let them talk about that over there. We have a very important job to do to make sure we're providing our students with an inclusive environment where they feel welcome, they feel supported, making sure that we're giving them the tools that they need, not only to do math and spelling, but to learn how to interact with one another, right? Kids were isolated for a good year and a half in many places. And what I heard from these teachers today was that they have to create an on-ramp for the socialization that students missed. And they have to be intentional about getting students together and caring for their mental health needs. Many of our students, 140,000 of them, Jacob, are coming back to our schools having lost a parent or primary caregiver. So we have to address their needs. So yes, I think education has become a topic that very few want to use to create division. But we do what we do best. We bring our communities together. Our schools are wonderful communities where everyone is welcome. You don't have to agree with everything. It's okay to have different opinions. Ask a kindergarten teacher how to handle that, right? They know how to handle that. So let's just do what we do best. Let's bring in different perspectives. Let's make sure that our classrooms are welcoming places where all children can feel successful, they feel seen and welcomed, and where all parents know that they're partners in the process. That's what we do.
The one thing that catches this, though, and this is coming from, I'm from Texas, and we've had moments here where people have they've lost jobs because of certain conversations that have happened at board meetings, or books have been banned. We featured we featured an author on Teach Me Teacher where these books are being attacked and removed. And so these political conversations, even though I feel like teachers are kind of buckling down and doing what we need to do and taking care of students, I feel like it's getting to where more and more of these things are starting to enter the classroom.
Right. Yeah, there are some states where it's more prevalent than others. And I think it's a concern when we have policymakers making decisions that are affecting the livelihood of our teachers, of our school principals, of our superintendents. Over the last year, I spoke to superintendents who were trying really hard to make sure that children were safe, and we're getting pressure not to follow the mitigation strategies that help protect children. So it's no surprise to me that when that issue goes away now, it's another issue. Again, it's trying to sow division. My message to educators is, continue to advocate for what our children need, and ensure that, parents are hearing what you're doing for their students and that they're advocating as well. It's unfortunate that we do have leaders and educators losing their jobs, or districts making very poor decisions that ultimately are going to hurt students. And I think it's really important that we spotlight the impact it has on children. At the end of the day, this is about serving children and giving them the best opportunity for success. And at a time we're dealing with teacher shortages because either we don't pay them enough or we don't show them enough respect, the last thing a district could afford to do is lose teachers.
Right. So in your role, when you're, talking with teachers and even speaking to people who might not understand the classroom like you do, and talk to educators as much, do you find yourself making that point often to lawmakers or anyone that's paying attention that maybe this is being counterproductive in the long run, and this division is really just causing more problems in education rather than fixing? Do you find yourself taking that stance when you're talking to a variety of people?
I do, but it's they know what they're doing, and it's intentional in many cases. At the end of the day, I always say, I go back to, I trust my teachers.
Mm-hmm.
I trust, as you said earlier, when the doors close, teachers care for their children, and they do care that parent engagement is a part of the day. I mean, which teacher doesn't understand? Teachers do understand that you go farther with a student when you have their parent support and when you're working together. So I do spend time talking about not only the importance of giving teachers the professional respect to let them do what they were trained to do, but also showing them a little bit more respect. For some, it's intentional to try to create problems in public schools because they're maybe wanting folks to privatize a bit. But for me, public school educators have shown their worth even before the pandemic. But this past 2 years, they bent over backwards for our students. We need to respect and trust our teachers.
When it comes to, you mentioned the different resources, such as, pay and smaller class sizes and anything like that. When it comes to what you're doing and advocating for, I feel like we've all kind of had these conversations for a while in public school. We know that teachers should get paid more. We know that there should be, shoving, 35 kids into a room or more. There's teachers that have 40 or whatever, these things are not necessarily conducive to the best learning environments. And yet it seems like a lot of this stays. But I wanted to point out that when you spoke with Nicholas Ferroni, I've had him on the show. I've met him several times, but you talked about how there's more money than ever kind of being funneled into education. I wanted to give you just a few moments to actually bring some of this good news, because some of this stuff I feel like doesn't trickle down enough.
No, I hear you.
Just spend a few minutes, if you can, just talking about some of the good news that is coming to education from your perspective.
Let me just a couple of vignettes. So President took office in January of last year. 46% of our schools were open full time. That was in January. By March, he announced we're going to prioritize teacher and educator vaccinations. By July, we had, I think, 90% vaccination rate for our teachers. By I think it was like October, we had 190. I say 90. I want to say 100, but my staff says, "Oh, there's always one or two." 99% of our schools were open full time, which gives our kids an opportunity to learn in person. I heard from teachers for the last 2 years, hybrid doesn't work as well. It's not great. So we got our kids in school. The president pushed and Congress passed the American Rescue Plan, $130 billion in education. And I must remind you, only Democrats voted for this. As much as it's really important that I support all students, it's important for educators to know if it weren't for the American Rescue Plan, which only half of Congress voted for, we would be dealing with different headlines right now. We would be talking about which schools are closing, how teachers are not going to be, we're having less teachers, less mental health support for our students. But instead, what we're talking about is $130 billion, more money in education than any time I've been an educator. President that gets it. So that money has been distributed. We gave out 100% of that money already. States have it, districts have it. And what we're pushing them to do is increase mental health supports, because we heard that from teachers. Increase teacher pay, because we know that's needed. Improve working conditions, because it's more than just pay. Teachers also want to know that they're going to be supported, that there's enough school counselors in their schools, that there are enough psychologists and social workers to help, that they're parent liaisons to help parents feel reconnected in the school. So the funds are being used to provide after-school programming, good summer school programming, fix the ventilation systems. We heard from teachers last year that some of their buildings are so old and like their ventilation system hasn't been touched in years. That stuff is getting fixed. So I guess there are many strategies that we're hearing about where the money is being used to improve conditions in schools, but we need to lift those messages. We need to lift those stories more, and we need to make sure that in every district across America, it's clear how the money is being used to help students and help our educators. The president was very clear. We're passing the American Rescue Plan, and in particular, the $130 billion to reopen our schools, but also reimagine them. So we could do new programs like better career connectedness and get our students into the workforce and into 2-year, 4-year colleges, and give every student an opportunity. Increase funding for Title I schools where there's greater need and there's higher poverty. And it's not just the American Rescue Plan, Jacob. Tomorrow, I'm testifying in front of Congress for the budget that the president proposed for next year, for 2023. There's a $20 billion proposal, which is like unheard of. $20 billion increase proposal for Title I. There's $400 million to increase career connected program, meaning more CTE programs to give students classes in high school that can connect them to 2-year colleges to get jobs and get credentials. Not everything is 4 years or bust, right? Sometimes we have this mentality that 4-year colleges are nothing. We need to do better. It also includes money to double the number of social workers in our schools. So what I want teachers to hear is we're fighting at the federal level to put our money where our mouth is. And tomorrow I'll be fighting, and I'm going to get a lot of folks who are thinking we have too much money in education trying to prove me wrong, but I'm going to fight for our educators, for our students, because it's the right thing to do. I remember being asked to do more with less my whole career. It's time that we stop that and we say we need to invest in education, or else we're going to be investing in intervention. So I'm really excited to represent teachers and fight for them and fight for our students and our families who deserve an opportunity to recover from this pandemic as well.
Secretary Miguel Cardona, thank you so much for the work you do. I think you're doing fantastic stuff. I believe you're the right man for the job, and it's been an honor talking with you. Thank you for
I appreciate it
coming on this show. Now
I'm blessed to serve in this position, and it's an honor at this time to serve in this position.
And that is it for this episode, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope this was a nice surprise for Teacher Appreciation Week. Secretary Miguel Cardona over here on Teacher. We're going to have to do it again. I would love to have a longer discussion. There were so many things that I wanted to hit on, but time is of the essence with these types of interviews. So we can only dive so deep, but I would love to hear from you all. Let me know what you think. Maybe we can do this again. Maybe we can get someone else on. Is there someone else that you would love to hear on Teach Me Teacher? If you're new to the podcast, we talk to everyone over here. This is not an echo chamber show. We've talked to people such as Secretary Miguel Cardona. We've talked with Eric Weinstein, Penny Kittle, Kelly Gallagher, Donalyn Miller, Matthew K, Jennifer Saravallo, Alfie Cohn, and so many more. We love talking to a variety of guests here on the podcast. So if you want to hear someone, let me know and we will make it happen, bringing the best conversations in the educational space here at Teach Me Teacher. If you want to support my work, please go do so. You can check out my book, Teach Me Teacher, over there on Amazon, or my latest book, Rightfully Empowered, all about empowering young writers in the Writers Workshop. And if you don't want to do that, you can subscribe so you don't miss any episodes of Teach Me Teacher. We drop an episode every single Monday, and sometimes during the week. You never know what is going to happen. Leave a review if you enjoyed this episode. Check out my second podcast, Craft and Draft, and come back next week for another fantastic episode. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, have a good one.